We are recording. So we can't talk about zipForm without talking about Docusign. So what I want to do today is really just do a quick review, and then I want to show you some of the new stuff, because depending on the last time that you really took advantage of everything that was in here, there may be some big new stuff for you. So let's go and jump in here. First things first, just a quick review of what's what. And I made this a video just so it could be quick and to kind of run through it. So this is what your system looks like, and we'll jump back and forth and go in and out live. But you've got transactions, templates. One of the new things you have at the top now is called tasks, contacts, where you can add contacts. You guys don't have administration, partners you may see, and then help, which is a lot of videos and things like that. But the new one up there is tasks, and that's part of the transaction management that is now in the system, and we'll run through that a little towards the end. You can send calendars, you can send a checklist, you can send all sorts of things when you do that. They come up as PDFs, and you can print them, email them, kind of do whatever it is that you want. You're looking at a week view there. So you also have urgent tasks, so when you log in, you can have these things kind of right in front of you, anything that you must do, right now. But 99% of the time, you guys are working in transactions and transactions only. At the top, the little light bulb now is where your bulletins come in, so when they have new stuff. And then that digital ink, I'm making an X over that because we don't use that. We're on Docusign. zipTMS, transaction management. That's the new part. The green thing's not new, and then relay we don't use. The green thing's that video conferencing we've talked about before. So TMS we will talk about today. That is free for you guys. This is one more thing that your realtor dues pay for. So you may or may not know it, but last year the National Association agreed to pay for zipForm and a bunch of other things. So your locals are now paying for, well, some of your locals are paying for Docusign and some of the extras like zipForm Mobile, transaction management, things like that. We're going to talk about the profile in a minute, but to go in and work on your profile, you click on the little drop down by your name, and that's where you'll see your About Me. You'll see all of your libraries, your settings, your notifications. There's a lot of different things now that you have in your zipForm account, because the more things that the National Association pays for, the more your local is trying to do for you, so that's a good thing. Sure.
When you say, like, you're saying...
Hang on. I'm going to stop my video. Okay, go ahead.
You're saying zipTMS, zipForm Plus, zipForms, you're meaning all the same thing, right?
Right, so the question is, when I'm talking about zipTMS, zipForm, all of those things, are they all the same? And yes, absolutely, they're all part of zipForm. They just call them different things, but they're all inside of zipForm. Technically, even Docusign, everything we do in Docusign can be done in zipForm. Yeah, with the exception of, like, if you have an issue. But absolutely. And we'll run through this, but the most important thing with Docusign and zipForm is that you make sure that your credentials are correct in there, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. But they have all different preferences and things like that that you can do in here. And then the final piece of this is there's a little notifications thing under your profile as well. And that's a little bit newer. That's, when do I want to be alerted of things? So I don't have anything checked off, but you guys may want to have certain things checked off. So let's jump in and actually take a peek at this. I get an email. At one point in time, it was probably one day a week. Now it's probably once a week, twice a week, where somebody says, I can't use Docusign. I'm getting this message called invalid credentials. What does that mean? And then I send you a message that I have written out because I've sent it so many times. I just copy and paste it for the last person. That basically says, okay, you changed your password in zipForm, and Docusign is now saying, zipForm is now saying, I can't access your Docusign. So that's the issue there. So all you need to do that, or if you've never done it before, if you're brand new and you've never even, set up your Docusign, you have to set up your Docusign account. Your local will send you a link. It's like, click here, set up your Docusign account. And then whatever email and password you choose, that's what has to go in zipForm. If you don't put exactly that in zipForm, it's not going to work. That's when you get invalid credentials. And if you jump into Docusign and change your password, you also have to change it in zipForm. So you go up to Profile, you click on that drop down, and you go to Settings. And then you make sure that your email and password are what you use to log into Docusign. So first thing you do when you get invalid credentials is you go to Docusign and you just do forgot password. If you don't remember your email login, that can get a little more fun. You know, we all have at least 5 or 6 emails now, so just try every single one. The easiest thing is think about what email you get messages on from your board. So for me, it's always been my Stephanie@stephaniehahn.com for, 10, 13 years. So that was the one that they set up my Docusign account on. I never changed it. So that's what, if it's your AOL address from 20 years ago, that's what it'll be here. Now, if you need to change it, it's not something Paul can fix. It's not something I can fix. We actually have to go to your board. It's been a while since I called BCAR, but in the first 2 years that we launched this, I probably talked to BCAR about Docusign, I would say twice a week at least, changing emails, resetting accounts, and things like that. If you've never, has anyone in the room never connected their Docusign with zipForm? Okay, so you guys might have to call BCAR. About 2.5 years ago, they emailed everybody with like a, hey, set up your Docusign account kind of an email. Had a little yellow button in it. They can resend that to you. So you just have to pick up the phone, talk to Kelly, talk to Siobhan, any of the girls can help you, and just say, I need my Docusign setup email again. They'll know exactly what you're saying. They'll ask you for a name, and they'll send it out. And then when you get that email, click on the button, you set up your account. It's basically just picking a password. And then that's when you do this piece. If you never connect these two, there are people that, will just work in Docusign and separately in zipForm. If you never connect the two, you're making twice the work. Connecting these two is what makes your life and all of this go much, much quicker. Can you function in them separately? Sure, you can PDF everything and go back and forth, but it's a pain in the neck. Docusign will work almost inside of zipForm. It's the easiest way I can describe it. I also should mention I have a cheat sheet that I can send out to everybody that's been, we've been using for the last couple years. It's kind of just step-by-step how to do all of this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about working with buyers. Instead of doing my little video, I'm going to do this live with you. So when we start a buyer file, we're going to go up here and click New. 99.9% of the time, you're going to go up here and click New to start a file. If you go to Forms, you can pick a form, but you're going to end up having to start a file anyway. So you think you're saving time by going to Forms and just I do the same thing. Like, I just need a consumer notice. I go to Forms, unless you're not going to save it, you just want to, email it out, you're not saving any time. So go to New, and you've got to name it. You've got to say whatever it is. Your office should be here. If your office is here, if the office here is not your office, especially for the people in this room, when we consolidated everybody, we had a little bit of an issue. It should all be fixed, but if your office does not say the correct office, let me know. Under Apply Template, we'll talk about building a personal template for you at the end, but we also have company templates. So if I click the drop down at Apply Template, I have buyers, rentals for landlords, rentals for tenants, and then sellers. And the buyer and seller folders in particular are meant to be exactly the same as what's in your yellow, seller yellow folder and your buyer blue folder, in the back. So all you do is click on whichever one you want and you save it. You certainly do not have to use these. We're just trying to be helpful and make things easier. Then it's going to build your file out, and you'll see over here that your form window will always kind of be open when you first jump in. To me, it drives me nuts because it feels like it takes up too much of the screen. Anything that's dark blue is already in my folder. So you see where it says appraisal contingency? That means, because it's dark blue, it means it's already in my folder, okay? I can change my view here. I like these, I'm blind, so I like these big bubbly icons, but if I click on this little guy here, this little 3 lines, that will give me more of a list. So it's really just a preference there. So if I want to close this, I just click on that arrow and it pushes it off to the side. I can always bring it back and it's there. If you're looking for something specific, there are different libraries you can look in. If you happen to know, well, I know this is a state form, or I know this is just a Hearthside form. I just signed off on like 8 new forms this morning that we have going in there, things that are getting updated and that sort of thing. So just in the Hearthside library alone, after today, we'll probably have 30 different forms in here. You don't have to use all of these forms. They're just meant to be helpful. Even if there's something in your folder, it may or may not apply to your transaction. We're honestly just trying to be helpful. If you see something in the template and you say, Steph, that's the dumbest thing ever, get that out. I'm the one that makes them, so I'm responsible. So if you see something in there that you don't think should be in there, let me know. And if I don't have a fight for it, I'll take it out. I really just follow the folders. So once I'm in here, that's kind of when the fun begins. When I first start working with a buyer, first thing I need to do, and you've got to wrap your head around this because this is new, is go up to parties. So you see how I have all these tabs at the top here now? Used to just be documents. Then they added documents, parties, property. Now I've got checklist, services, history. I've got a ton of stuff up there. So what I want to get in the habit of doing is going to parties. And when I go to parties, I need to add some people in here, right? I need to add my buyer. I need to add myself, all these different people. Under the property tab, I can go in and use something called MLS Connect now. And I should see if I have any Lehigh Valley people on here. Lehigh Valley people do not have MLS Connect. If you're using Trend, you should see it. But I'm sorry, Lehigh Valley people, I see a couple of you on here. You guys don't have MLS Connect. When you try to use it, it'll say that we haven't bought it, but really it's that they don't allow it. So Trend has said yes, so we're allowed to do that. And all you have to do here is put the MLS ID in, click Find, and you can import your property. The other new one here is Checklist, and hopefully the first thing you're thinking is, can the company just put something in here for me? Or at least maybe that's what I'm thinking. You guys probably aren't thinking that. Right now, I'm kind of going back and forth with, do I try to create a checklist for all of you, or do I let you create your own? I don't know if you'll use it if you create your own, but I don't know that you'll use ours either. So I'm going to kind of, this is new. We've only had this for about a month. So I'm going to kind of try it both ways with a couple people and see sort of how that goes. But I'll show you how this all works. You also now have a services tab. So your services tab is going to have things like Updater, e-commission, Squawk, anything that it's kind of like a third party to zipForm that you can use in conjunction with the program. And then the final one is history. And the history tab is boring right now, but I'll show you some juicy ones a little bit later. All right, so let me just pop back out to my slides, make sure that I'm where I need to be here. Okay, so starting a buyer file, we know, right, we're going to hit new 99.9% of the time. We name our file. You've got to do property type and transaction type or it won't let you go on. You also have to name your file or it won't let you go on. You want to save that at the bottom and then you jump in here. This can look a little overwhelming. I think this is really kind of busy right now where it used to be pretty plain. Don't panic about this. There's nothing crazy in here. It's just your forms. And there's, it's like any other program. I think you'll probably use 10, 20% of it. If you find something in here that really helps you, that's great. I would highly, highly recommend adding your parties now. Get in the habit of doing that. The main reason is because we're docu-signing, we're emailing things out now. We're making this as easy as possible. And you don't even have to put every little thing about your buyer in. If you just put their name and their email, you will be so happy. When you get to DocuSign, if you don't put the email and their name in parties, and you just put it on a form, you're going to have to go back and forth when you get to DocuSign and keep putting their email in over and over and over again. And it's a pain. So just add them once in parties, get it over and done with. The other neat thing that you can do, and I'm not an advocate of adding a lot of contacts in here because I don't know what they do with your contacts. I'm a distrustful person by nature, but I don't think that you're going to do anything crazy with them. The one contact I would add is you. So then when you've got a new file, you can import yourself and all of your info pretty easily. You'll see it's a little bit of a pain to populate your own information over and over again, which is the one thing that it shouldn't be a pain, but we have to deal with it. So the Parties tab is a little funky, and I just want to review that, and then I'll get your question, Dee Dee. You go up to the Parties tab, you click on New, and then this Transaction Party window pops up, and you just need to select whether it's Buyer 1, Seller 1, Agent, whoever it is. And again, in the beginning, when you're just meeting somebody and you just need to send them a consumer notice and a buyer agency, first name, last name, and email. That's all you need. And save. Dee Dee. Oh, hang on one second. Did you have a question?
I did. So I clicked on parties and list came down, but also it says selling Coldwell+Banker.
Right. That kind of populates automatically just because you're you and the company, some of the company info is in there as well. Right. There's nothing in there. You have to, yeah. So just like you're adding your buyer. So the question is, there's somebody pops up, and if you saw that in mine, we were going through it. The selling broker, in this case, I put a buyer file in. Selling broker pops up automatically. On the other side, it'll be the listing broker. That pops up automatically because there are certain things in the form, like it assumes that you're part of this transaction. So you just have to go in and fill that out. You can actually import yourself as the contact there as well. It's a little funky, but I can show you what it looks like. Buyer contacts? You lost me there. Yep. Oh, yeah, then your window should open. Yep, so like in this example, I hit Buyer 1, or I selected Buyer 1, and this window popped up that shows me, technical help, that shows me how to add somebody. And then I save it, and I'm good. Eric?
I think you're answering my question here.
Okay.
Sure. The contact information, should you put that in so that it populates any form that you want?
Yes.
Or is there another way to put it in without adding somebody as a contact and it still populate the forms that you want? Because you're saying you don't necessarily want to put people in as contacts because you don't know what you might do with them.
So, okay.
What's a workaround?
Yeah, so the question is, you said don't use contacts. The only contact I would add under the contact heading, and let me jump out and show you what I'm talking about. So you see how you have this contacts up here? What I was saying is don't populate this with all of your people. Put yourself in there so you can import all of your information quickly, and you can see that's what mine looks like. When I'm talking about adding a contact in the file, you have to put your person's name in under parties. It doesn't save them though. Think of this contacts as like an address book on zipForm. That's what I'm saying don't do. Don't worry about saving them in there. If you put them in the parties of your transaction, then yes, they will absolutely go on every single form that you have or that you add in the future. Now, there's one exception there, and that's our name. Our agent names, for some reason, when you fill out that selling broker, it's a pain in the butt. Talked to zipForm about it before. It takes like certain pieces of your information, but not all of it. So then you have to go back into one of the forms, like go into your buyer agency or something and throw your name in there. It's just a weird quirk of the system. I think it's name. I think it takes your email, but not your name. There's certain little pieces it just doesn't take. But your buyers and sellers, they all transfer over appropriately. It's just our information that doesn't. So, all right, so let me pop back out here. Dee Dee, are you squared away now? Okay. All right, so one of the newer features that some of you may have used, some of you may have not, that I want to talk about is called Collaborate. And what Collaborate allows you to do is send out either a BFI, again, sorry, Lehigh Valley, or a seller's disclosure that will actually, your buyer or your seller can fill out online and send back to you. So no more, faxing, they're scribbling the information in, faxing it back to you, or scanning and emailing, that sort of thing. We have been asking for this for years, and it's here. It's pretty cool, but I find a lot of agents are a little scared to use it, so I want to go through it with you. It's a little bit newer. So Collaborate is next to eSign, and one thing I need to be very clear about is that collaborating is not Docusigning. Collaborating is them filling out a form, but they're not signing the form. So I might send a BFI out to my buyer to fill out through Collaborate, but I still have to send that form through Docusign to have them sign it. Okay? Two different things. So all I have to do, and you'll see Collaborate right next to eSign in your folder, is click on Collaborate, and then you'll see at the very top it'll say Add a Person. Here's the first place that if you haven't added that party, if you haven't added your people, you need to say, okay, I better go back and do this. So if you haven't done that, go back to your Parties tab and add your people in there. If you have, when you click Add a Person, your people are just going to pop up, and you just select them off. Easy peasy. So you check off the collaborator, and you click Save. So in this case, I've checked off my buyer, and I'm going to click Save. Again, if somebody's not here, go back to your Parties tab and add them in. Now this gets a little busy, I know. At the top here, I'll see my person who I've selected. Automatically, it gives them a month. You can tighten that up, but you'll see it says sharing until. So if you only want to give them 3 days or a week, you can tighten that up. You can also, though, at any point in time, come back here and turn off the access. So don't sweat it if you don't, if you've turned it off. Just don't set it too tight. Mostly, I would just leave it at a month. What you want to do here, and I'm going to be very specific, yes to the first two and no to the third. And I'll explain the no to the third a little bit later, but trust me, no to the third. Yes, they can edit. Yes, they can add files. Maybe you need them to add a bank statement or a gift letter or something like that. So yes to the first two, but do not turn on view history. Okay, keep that for your stuff. Okay, so yes, and it's just a click. So I click, it says yes. They're all set to no automatically. So when I click Add a Person, I'm choosing my person, but if I never give them access to anything, it's not going to do anything. So I have to say yes and yes. And then down here, all my files, in this case, I just wanted the buyer agency, so the buyer's financial. So I just click that off, and then I hit my send button up here. Okay, so yes, no, pick your form, and send. You can leave your sharing date alone if you want. Now, you're still not done. So once I hit send, a little pop-up is going to pop up, and it's going to say your person's name. It's going to be, the subject will be their name again. Whatever, well, I shouldn't say that. It's going to be whatever you named your file. So buyer files, we tend to name buyer names. Seller files, we tend to name the address. So it's whatever the subject of your particular file, whatever you named your file. Take the time, don't just hit send here. Take the time to let them know what they're going to see. And if you've never used this before, I'm going to show you exactly what they see so you know. So what I said to my buyer here was, here's the form that you need to fill out. Click the orange button to create an account. Write down your login and password. I don't see that part. Not only do you not see that part, but I don't see that part. Paul doesn't see that part. We can't fix that for them. So they've got to remember their login and password. Okay? Then, once you've done that, click Send Now. Now, we're going to flip this a little bit. So now I'm my client. Okay, this is the email, a copy of the email that your client gets. This is exactly what it looks like. So it's going to have your picture instead of mine up there. And it's going to say, Dear Mr. Buyer, Stephanie has invited you to collaborate on these documents. And there's a big blue button that says Start Collaborating Now. So they have to click that blue button to go in and start the process. Once they've done that, they have to create an account. And this is exactly what it looks like. So you're going to see this little box on the left here. And the first thing that's going to come up is a username and password. And for 99% of us, we've got autosave on our computers, right? Our logins and passwords save. So what's the problem with that? This is going to auto-populate something. 9 times out of 10. I see it all the time. And then the person says, I can't get in. I can't log in because you never created an account. You have to train them, and this is why I say in that email, tell them to set up an account or pick up the phone. It's like an orangey, peachy kind of box here, but if they mouse over it, it'll be orange. They have to click this new user, create an account. Okay, they can take out, if something auto-filled, they can, or pre-filled for them, they can take that out if they want, but really they just need to click this button. And they have to do that. That's the only way to get in. Then the box will, another little box will open. It kind of expands down, and it'll say your buyer's name and their email address. And then there's a drop down here, and this is where they start filling things out. It's going to say I am, and there's a drop down that says buyer, seller, whatever. And then they write in a login and a password. The login does not have to be an email address. Okay, so they put whatever they want for their login, and they put a password in 2 times. Most of us have done this before, right? So it shouldn't be too far into somebody. If you think they're going to have trouble with it, just pick up the phone. Then they click continue, and they'll immediately be put into what looks like zipForms, really. It's kind of a watered down version of what yours looks like. The colors are the same. They'll just see a lot less. They have a lot less buttons. Okay, so this is what they see. They're going to see your happy smiling face on the left, along with your phone number. They'll see their file name and a little bit about their file. And then they'll have your document. So in this case, the BFI, but it's very, very similar to what you have. All they have to do to fill this out is click on it. Again, looks exactly the same as your zip form. They go into the file, they start filling it out, they just check things off or type things in. Okay? So they just have a little bit less, but a lot of it's the same. They have highlights, strikeout, they can check their spelling, they can write you a little note, whatever they want to do here. Now, when they're done, let me go back one, they want to hit save. So once they've filled everything out, even if they're not totally done, tell them to save. In fact, I think if they try to close and they don't hit save, it actually forces them to save. But once they hit save, they're not done. They actually have to close the form and then go to close out of zipForm, their version of zipForm. When they do that, so it's close, close. Remember to tell them, close, close. Got to close twice. Close out of the form and close out of zipForm. Once they do that, or once they try to do that, a little message is going to pop up that says, you're closing this transaction. Do you want to notify your agent? Do you want to notify, in this case, me? And they can say, there are 2 buttons. They can say, I'm done collaborating, close and send the notification. Or maybe I need to come back. I just got to run right now, so they might just want to say close without sending. Okay? So up to them. Now, if they choose the first one, it's going to pop up another little box, and they can write you a note. They don't have to, but if they want to, so maybe, they have a question about something, whatever. They hit send, and they're done. Okay, you guys can practice this too. It's important to know what somebody's going to see on the other end, because they're not going to call me. They're going to call you and say, how do I do this? Right? Any questions on this part? Has anybody done this? You've done it, and how did it go? You did it to yourself. That's great. I want everybody to do it to themselves. And how did you think it worked?
It worked. I mean, I did that, and I also did Docusign, and
Great.
I just kept playing around to try and learn to figure it out.
Yeah, that's the best thing you can do. Everybody, we all have more than one email. And you can see, I use funny names, but it's always my email addresses on them. You just go back and forth, put a different name on there, put Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, whatever in your, don't use your own name because that'll just confuse you. You're the agent, but then pick a name for your buyer or your seller, your fake buyer or fake seller. But absolutely play around with this. Any other questions on Collaborate before I jump into Docusign? Any questions on Collaborate from anybody on the webinar? I don't see any hands up. All right, so let's go into Docusign. Who in the room has used Docusign successfully? Okay, so about half, okay. And online, who has used Docusign successfully? Hands up if you've used it successfully. I know some of you have. It's got to be more than Sharon. Barbara, okay, good. All right, so then let's spend the time and go through this. First of all, I'm just going to say embrace it. It's beyond being here. It's not the new thing anymore, so just go with it. I know it feels weird, but you got to just go with it and embrace it because you know what? Your buyers want to do this. Your sellers want to do this. Whether you want to or not, they do. So we're assuming a lot here, right? I've set up my buyer file. I've done, you know, maybe I've set up the consumer notice. I've set up their buyer agency. I've collaborated with them. I've sent the BFI to them. So now I need them to sign a few things. We're not at the agreement yet. We'll get to that. But I filled out my initial forms. All I need to do inside of my folder is click on e-sign. Okay? Then I just want to choose the files that I need to send. So at the top here, there's kind of this funky thing where you can name your submission. And because you're going to DocuSign a few times throughout a transaction, this can actually become kind of helpful. So initially I might say, all right, I'm sending them consumer notice. I put CN in there, the guarantee, buyer agency, BFI. Those are the forms that I'm sending. You don't have to do that. I just find it to be helpful going along. Not required though. Then I just check off the forms that I want, okay, and I click next. Now a little window is going to pop up. And again, if I don't have my parties in, I got to go back and add my parties. I guarantee you will screw this up a few times, and you're going to go back and forth a few times. If you have to put that person's email address in 3 or 4 times, you're going to be pulling out your hair. I've watched agents do it. And then you're going to get the email wrong. And then you're going to say they never got it. And then there's going to be a whole other issue. So trust me, put your people in under parties. It's worth it. Because if you screw this up, and I screw it up all the time too, you go back and forth a couple times, it's going to make this section a lot easier. And their email and their name will already be in there. So you're just clicking things off. You're not retyping. So in this case, there are certain things that I need to sign as the agent. So I'm checking myself off and my buyer. And I'm going to click Done. Now, 2 things I want you to be aware of. Your signer window is like a big pop-up. But there are 2 things behind it that I want you to be aware of. And the first, because we do screw this up a lot and have to go back and forth, is the previous button. And that wasn't there before. It used to say close. So the previous button is going to help you if you have to go back and add somebody under parties, if you realize an email's wrong, if you forgot somebody, whatever it is. Previous is your friend. So use the previous button. Don't close out of zipForm. Don't hit your back button on your browser. Use the previous in that screen that you're looking at. Okay? The other thing, sometimes when we go back and forth, because we missed something, that signer window with the names doesn't pop up again. So if that happens to you, sorry, all you have to do is hit this little blue plus, and the blue plus will bring that window back up in front of you. Sometimes when you go back and forth because you're fixing things, the window stops coming up for you. The other thing I want you to be aware of on this particular screen, and they're how they would be on the screen. So your signer window would be on top of my text here. The previous and the blue plus are on the left-hand side, and your options and your next are on the right. Okay? So on the right side, you've got options and next. I will tell you to always, always, always go for options here. They will both achieve the same result. You can send out through Docusign. However, you can do more with the options. So even if you don't use your options, just go to options. It puts you a screen back. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the zipForm part. You're still going to be in zipForm. You'll just have Docusign kind of framed in there. So now you see my colors have changed a little bit. Depending on your association is what will determine your colors. I'm Suburban West, so we're red and black. M car is purple. B car is blue. And I think Philadelphia is blue as well. So I will take your question in just a sec when we get to the end of this section here. So meanwhile in Docusign, once I hit options, this is what I'm going to see. If I hit next, I'm going to be a screen ahead. So I hit options, so this is what I see. I've got my consumer notice, my buyer services guarantee, my buyer agency, and my BFI. Now, normally there are dates and things behind these. And sometimes what agents say to me is, you know, my people are seeing these dates behind the forms and they're saying it's an old form because the consumer notice hasn't been changed since 08 and it says 2008 on it. These are made for you to change. These boxes, you can put your cursor right in, just take those dates out. You can, I would take out tenant maybe, even on this buyer agency where it says buyer tenant. This is the name of the form. It doesn't matter though if you change it here. It's just going to change what your person sees. You're not changing the integrity of the form at all. But sometimes people ask me about the dates, so I like to mention that. The other thing you can do here is change the order around that they sign in. Oops. The important thing to do here is if you look at this box in red that I've highlighted, this is kind of your final email check. And you've got want to make sure that the email addresses are correct. You can also change around your order of the forms, but you can also change the order of the people as well. So if I'm working with 2 buyers and they only have 1 email address, can I still use Docusign? Anybody? Yeah, absolutely. How do I do it? Well, I make sure the email is the same, but I make sure the order is 1 and 2. Because in this case, I'm sending to 2 different email addresses, I could technically make the order 1 and 1. So what is that going to do if I have 1 and 1 in my order? Any guesses? Somebody say that louder. I didn't hear you. It goes to both, right. So then if I have 1 and 1 there, whoever gets it first and gets into sign can sign. The other person just, you know, waits basically. But it's 1 and 1 or 1 and 2. It's up to you. The biggie is you can't do that if you're sending to the same email address. I shouldn't say you can't do it. It can be done, but it's messy. So I would suggest not doing it. 1 and 2 if you're sending to the same email. The other thing that we've talked about this before, people are always going to argue with me and say Docusign is not secure and it's a terrible idea because anybody can answer my email and sign my documents. And that could be the case, but I think it's better than a fax machine, you know, something sitting on their fax at work. There is under the identity, if you look here where it says identity, email, I can actually set a secret code for somebody. So if Carol's going to sign some documents for me, under here, if I click the drop-down arrow at email, I can actually put a code in and say, all right, Carol, now I'm not going to send it through here. I'm going to call her or text her and say, your code is 1234. And then she has to type that code in. So she can answer her email, but then she has to type the code in to actually sign her documents. Okay? Nobody uses it, but if you really are concerned about security, you certainly can. All right? So next thing, and again, this is we're on the same page. So at the top here, you've got your forms, then you've got your emails, final email check, then a little further down the page, you've got an email option where you can go in and you can write something to your people. Now, the thing I was just saying about that secret code, I would never want to put that secret code in here because it's going to all the recipients. Anybody that I'm sending that these forms to will get that secret code that I'm sending to my person. So that's why I want to give them to that, give that them outside of Docusign. Would I suggest doing an email here? Absolutely. The biggie here is people are signing things without reading them, and it's getting better. but it's still not great. Not that they read them before, but you'll see, it can go kind of quick when you're DocuSigning. So the suggestion that we would have for all of you is, and you can have this saved on your desktop and just copy it in for everybody. Here are the forms that we reviewed, okay? Now that means you have to have reviewed them with them. Please sign them electronically. You will receive a copy of each signed form once all parties have signed, okay? So something easy like that. Then you want to click Next, okay? Once I get here, this is where if I had hit Next way back in DocuSign, I would automatically be. So it puts me a screen ahead, which is why I like options, because I like the email, I like the final form check and that sort of thing. So tagging is done automatically when you use DocuSign through zipForm. Tagging is done automatically when I use DocuSign through zipForm. If I go out to DocuSign on my own and upload a PDF, I got to tag it. If I'm using it through zipForm, it's done automatically. Unless there's something weird that I need somebody to sign that's not typical, signature. Don't assume that everything's there. For a long time, they didn't have the consumer signature on the consumer notice for whatever reason. But how do you tag? Tagging is actually easier than it looks. The thing you have to be most concerned about is in the top left here where it says tag for. And in this case, you want to make sure it says, I'm looking for my buyer's name here. And then all I do is I drag this little signature guy and pop it on there. Now, I wouldn't have to do this on the consumer notice because it's there. But if maybe you uploaded like a seller's disclosure from the MLS or something like that. So I still don't like to assume, even though your tags are there, I still don't like to assume, so just kind of run through. It'll take you 2 seconds to scan through your documents and make sure everything is there. So now let's look at the flip side again. Yeah, Patty. Mm-hmm. Well, anything you do, like anything you initiate through zipForm, will automatically be tagged for you. If when you're on the other side, if you have to drag tags over for like a seller's disclosure, yeah, you can do. I shouldn't say that. You could make yourself like a template in Docusign, which some people will do. The only problem with that is when the forms change, and they change so frequently, you've got to change your Docusign template. But you could have like a Docusign template for a seller's disclosure on the buy side that says, put my tags here, here, and here. I don't know anybody. I think Marianne O'Keefe is the only person I know that maybe use those. I think she was talking about using them a while ago, but I don't really know too many people that use them. So, yes, Carol.
After you've collaborated
Mm-hmm.
and they have sent everything back to you,
Right.
that automatically goes into the file that you've created, correct?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry. I was reading about my, sorry.
You sent something up for collaboration.
Right.
They send it back to you.
Yep.
It's not signed. It's filled out.
Yep.
So that goes into the file that you've created for
Mm-hmm.
that transaction.
Yeah.
So then when you want it signed, do you have to tag that as well? Or is that automatic?
So that's a great question. Let me show you that live, actually. Let's pop out. So the question for those of you that are on the webinar is, when I've collaborated with someone, are those documents automatically tagged when I send them through Docusign? So I can show you a real example of this. So I'm going to go into the file that I used to create this class. So this is my buyer. And I love collaborating because it's kind of a cool way to really see everything that's going on. So because I collaborated on this particular form with him, if I go up to history, I'll be able to see, let's see, it's down here. It'll show me where they've gone in. And so here's where I shared the file with him. And then I sent him the invitation to collaborate. And then here is where my buyer actually edited the BFI. So I can go in and click View Changes. And anything with a red border is something they filled out. We'll talk about how this can get you into trouble later. But anything with a red border is something that they have filled out, which is kind of neat. So now to Carol's question, what happens when I go in and I actually need to have this person sign this form? So the answer is yes, as long as the form originated here. When I go to e-sign, and I'm just going to pick the BFI here, and I'm going to hit next. I'm going to choose him. I'm going to say done. I'm going to go quick here just because I want to show you that it's tagged. Okay, so now I'm going to close this little guy, and when I scroll down, you can see his info is still in there, right? Everything he's typed in or checked off, but it's also tagged already. So the answer is yes. When you collaborate on something with somebody and you go back and forth, it's automatically still tagged.
But it does automatically go into the file when he sends it back to you directly.
So it's even better than that. It's not even that it goes into the file. It actually is just there. It's already in your, it never leaves your file. So you're going to get this little, these little messages up here that kind of wiggle back and forth that tell you when things are done. But if somebody says to you, they shoot you a text and say, hey, I filled this out, you can pop in here. As soon as they hit save, it updates. So if they tell you they've done it, go in and just check the file. Find my BFI here. And you'll see it in there. There it is. You'll see it right in your file. As soon as they hit save, you'll see their information in here. Okay. I think my voice is okay now. It sounds like you guys lost me, but I think I'm back now online. Sorry about that. We are recording this, so. All right, so now we're gonna look and see what your client gets, because again, they're gonna call you when they're confused about this. So it's important that you know what they're looking at, right? So my client that I've set up these forms in Docusign, I've hit send, gone through all my things that I needed to do, is gonna get this email. And it's from Docusign. It'll actually say it's from you via Docusign. And there's a little thing in here that says review documents. It's kind of easy to miss. Used to be a little bit bigger and yellow. Now it just says review documents. Okay, so they need to click on that. And what will happen, again, you see my association colors. This is all what your client would see. They need to click off this, please read the electronic records and signature disclosure. Of course, I'm sure they're going to read it, but this little thing will pull up if they click on the link, and they can check the little box off. They won't be able to do anything until they click off that they've read that, okay? And then once they click that off, they'll be able to click continue, okay? That'll be grayed out, though, until they check that off. What I always tell people to tell your clients is follow the flags. In BCAR and MCAR, it's a little nicer because your flags are yellow, my flags are red, but you get the idea. Follow the flags. So if they've seen the consumer notice and you've already reviewed it with them and they've gone through all these documents with you, all they need to do is click on this start flag, and it is going to shoot them right to the first place they need to initial or sign. Okay, it's pretty quick. Now, once they see a yellow tab, and it's yellow for everybody, they need to click on it. Okay, so you want to tell them follow the flags, and then when you see the little yellow tabs, either at an initial or a signature, just go ahead and click on that yellow tag. Okay? Now, this is the fun stuff. So they have a couple options here. Their name and their initials will be at the top, and they can select a style, which selecting a style just means I'm going to choose a font to represent my signature. If they're on select a style here, over here where it says change style, that's where they click to see the different fonts. Okay, once they've selected the one they want, they click adopt and sign. Those of you that know me and have talked to me about this before, I'm not a fan of that. No one's, well, maybe some people's signature look like a font. My signature certainly does not look like a font. And it's really not that hard to sign with, to do this once with a mouse or once with a stylus or even your finger, and know that, have that confidence that that is my chicken scratch. There's no one else's, right? So if they click draw, they can do it with a stylus, they can do it with their finger on a mouse pad. They're only doing it one time for signing and one time for initials. Once it's saved in there, they just click and it pops right in. So they're not doing it over and over and over again. They're doing it one time, right? So my buyer chose to do this, of course. So he goes in, he goes, I'm going to sign that, and then I'm going to adopt and sign. That is my signature, right? Now he just clicks through, and you can see here in the last one, that's his scribble. That's not a font, right? So he can feel comfortable. Might not look exactly the same, but it's going to be pretty darn close. When your person is done, all they need to do is click finish. And if they missed anything, Docusign will actually take them back. When they click finish, it'll pop them back up to whatever they happen to miss. Yeah, you can't do it. You got to get a code. Hang on, Leah's coming. So you have to click finish when you're done, or when they're done. The other thing I always like to tell people is that all of the signed documents get emailed to everybody. So you'll get a copy, they'll get a copy. It'll be coming as PDFs. And not only will you get a copy of the signed documents, but you'll also get a little summary page that shows you, IP, location information, times, date stamps, all sorts of fun stuff. Sometimes your mortgage companies ask for that page. That's the page that they're looking for. So signed docs get emailed, and this is basically what the email looks like. It says, again, it's from me, but on behalf, from Docusign, but on behalf of me as the agent. All parties have completed it, and then the 5 attachments that my buyer signed. Okay? Easy peasy, right? All right, any questions with that? And we're going to go a little bit more into Docusign when we talk about the agreement of sale, but any questions on that? Okay. Any questions? Those of you that are online, I'm going to put this hand down. Any questions anybody out there on the webinar has? All right, if you've got questions, just type them in the chat, and I'll make sure I grab them there. Okay, who's used MLS Connect in the room? Okay, so 2 of you. Okay. It is as awesome as it sounds. Basically, next to your Parties tab, you now have a Property tab. And when you're working with a buyer, they finally settled on the house that they want to put an offer in. You just go up to the Property tab. You're not really going to be able to use this with the seller, but certainly with buyers. You go up, click on the Property tab, and you click on MLS Connect, okay, this little guy. Then a window's going to pop up, and we kind of looked at this real quick in the beginning, and it's going to have your MLS in there. You click Trend. Again, Lehigh Valley people, fortunately this does not work with Elvar. A little pressure from you guys might help though, so get working on that. So you put your MLS ID in there. You can include a property photo if you wish. The photos of you and of the property do not go anywhere yet. However, 6 months or a year from now, I don't know, maybe your face will be on every page. I wouldn't be surprised. So just keep that in mind. But you put your MLS ID in, and then you have to click Find. You click Find, and this information in here, like address, city, all that, will populate. Once you've got that and it's correct, all you need to do is click this little Import button. Now, when I click Import, a little pop-up is going to pop up, and it's going to say, do I want to replace existing data with imported data? And it says if I reply no, data will be imported to blank fields only. So I would say it depends on how much work you've done, whether or not you use that. If I've done a bunch, I'm going to say no. If I haven't, sure, who cares? Yes. The glorious thing about this is it takes or brings in all of the listing agent's information in, so you're not typing all that crap in from somebody that you don't know, or somebody that you do know, but you don't have to worry about it, so it's nice. Now, what will happen next is it's going to populate this screen, and it's going to say, is this correct? And you can add some things in here. You don't have to do anything with it here. You can just click Save and then go back to your forms. Doesn't bring everything over. Okay, so you still need to go and fill out your, when we first got this, I had an agent who said, I used MLS Connect, but I turned in the agreement and it was missing all these things. Please, 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 go back to your agreements. This does not fill out every little piece of information on the property. It misses a few things here and there. So absolutely, It will help you, but it is not the end of your work. So just make sure you take advantage of it though and use what it gives you. So click save when you're done. And that's it. That's MLS Connect. That's what brings in a lot of that good stuff. The other newish thing is we can add documents now. And the transaction management piece of zipForms is kind of, it's been in the works for a while. It sort of has felt like a transaction manager for a while because this collaborate feature, we talk about using it with our buyers and sellers, but there's no reason you couldn't put your mortgage person, your title person, your manager, anybody on that thing. They don't have to edit the documents, but they could at least view them, print them, copy them into their files. The other thing that we can do, and we've been able to do for a while now, but a lot of people still aren't using it, is we can add documents. So you can add closing costs that you've done on trend. You can add the MLS sheet. You can add the seller's disclosure, all that good stuff, right to your file and really make it a true online file. Now, your managers and your coordinators are not there yet, so you're still gonna have to print it out for them. But at least we're getting closer to having that true online file. Yes, Dee Dee. Is there an advantage to doing it here rather than Dropbox? Absolutely. The advantage is that everything's already here. I mean, this is where you're starting your files. When you Docusign anything in here, you'll get a little folder that says, here are your Docusign documents, all within your zipForm. Yeah, I think it makes sense to have it here because this is where everything form-wise lives. Absolutely. Yeah. So where do I add documents? I click on Add Document within my folder. And I've done, depending on size, you can do like 3 at a time, more than 3 and it tends to crash, but it's a standard browse and upload. So you browse, find that document that you've downloaded from Trend or wherever, click Open, OK, and then you upload it. The other thing you can do is you can change the name. So sometimes things download with funky names and you're never going to remember what that is. So just rename it so you know what's what. And you can call it seller's disclosure because it's going to be in the file for that particular person or that particular address. So you can call every single one of these seller's disclosure that you download because it's going to be in that specific file. Make sense? Okay. And then you've just got your documents. So in this case, I put the MLS number and SD and then buyer closing costs, and I put the number. The one thing that, if you're working with a buyer and they've put in multiple offers, do you create a whole new file or do you base it off your first one? It's kind of up to you. But if you're going to use that same file over and over again and just change information, you might want to delete some of this older stuff that you've added in from other agreements you've put in. But you can absolutely send these documents through Docusign. They come in as PDFs. They will be kind of at the bottom of your transaction folder. You can also set up folders in there now. So if I want to put all the things I've added in a folder, things from Trend, or if I want to upload my photos in here, I can put those in here as well, whatever I want to do. But you can add documents to your heart's content. There's a huge, huge, huge space limit on here, so no worries about that. But definitely take advantage of that feature. All right, adding documents isn't super new, so see, I have a question online, so give me 1 second here. Okay, so there's a question. There was an area where it said due date. Is that useful? Yes, I think it's useful. We'll talk about it when we get to that part. Will these slides be available? Sure, I'll make them available. Okay, and somebody wants a checklist. Okay. Any questions in the room before I jump into history? Okay, yeah, Carol.
Since we're putting absolutely everything from the transaction into this file, what is the life of that?
That's a great question. So the question in the room is, if we put everything in this file, what's the life of the file? If I work on a file and today is the last day I touch it, it will be in my inbox or on that main transaction screen for 18 months. At 18 months, if I haven't touched it, it'll be archived. It's not deleted. It's just sort of in like a file purgatory that I can always access and always bring back if I need to. I don't think they ever delete files. They do archive after 18 months though. You can also just download the file if you wanted to, or save it electronically your own way if you want to get it off the system. Okay. All right, so let's look at the history tab. Some ways I think this is super helpful. I also think it can get us into trouble. So I showed you already what happens here. Buyer goes in, they fill out their form. You go in and look at the history tab, and it outlines in red what they've filled out. So what's the issue here? If I'm looking at a seller's disclosure, and maybe my buyer, I say to my buyer, oh, you know, you forgot this one little thing here. Then what? Tracks my change too. It's very, very easy for a seller to say to you, oh, can you just check that off because I forgot about it, and you're saying, I got to get this out to somebody. They want the seller's disclosure. Everything is tracked here. Everything is tracked. Their changes and your changes. So if you made a change to their seller's disclosure because they said to you, oh, just check off that box, don't worry about it, it's too much of a pain for me to go back in. Or I don't remember my login for Collaborate. I had that the other day. I don't remember the login for Collaborate, or my buyer doesn't remember it. My seller doesn't remember it. Can I just check this off? No. No, 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 no. Okay, please don't do this. I'm not saying anyone's gotten into trouble yet, but could we get into trouble? Absolutely. So it's just like taking your pen to a seller's disclosure, but in this way it's way worse because it's super easy to find out if you did it or not. So yeah, Patty. Okay. So I do a lot. The question is, how do I take things from trend that I'm downloading, like the buyer, your trend closing costs? Sure. So anything that, whether it's a PDF or not, anything in trend, they have that save as PDF now. And you can also, even if they didn't have it, you can always save as a PDF if you print and just choose save as PDF with anything that you do, and you can download it that way. No, you've got to save it first, and then go, like you're going to print, and then there's an option to save as PDF. But even if you don't, like let's just say, you know, you want to take the MLS sheet. You just want the MLS description. A lot of times we put those in our files, right? You'll print them out and throw them in a file. You can do that with trend too. You go to the property, you look up your MLS, so you're looking at the details, client full, oops. And then you click print, and there's an option to save as PDF. And even if, let's just say the option wasn't there, you can still click print, and when your own print box pops up, you can do this for almost anything, you can save as a PDF. You don't actually print. It's in like the available printers. It'll say save as PDF, or Microsoft Print to PDF, sometimes it's called. But absolutely take advantage of that. But you can do it with a lot of the stuff in trend now. You hit print first, which I know feels unnatural, but you're not actually printing it. You're just saving it as PDF. So I'm sorry? It pops up, and you can save it wherever you want. Yeah, it asks you where to save it. I'm sorry? So you have to have you have to have a PDF reader. If you guys don't have PDF readers though, with all the PDFs you're dealing with, then definitely go get a PDF reader because you're going to need that. So, okay. Any other questions on history or anything like that? Yeah, Greg. Sure. Uh-huh. They could, if you give them the option during collaborating to add documents, they could type something up separately, or maybe they want to add, I don't know, a termite contract or a bill or something like that. They can absolutely, as long as you have given them permission in Collaborate. Remember in Collaborate we said they can edit this form and they can add documents. So adding documents means they're adding documents to your file. So yes, if that's what you're looking for, if they type something up or maybe they had a receipt for some work or something like that, absolutely, yeah. Any other questions on history? Everybody understand my warning here with history, okay? Okay, good. All right, so let's look at signed documents, kind of seeing your signed docs, re-signing, that sort of thing. One of the things, once you've done some signing with Docusign, and you will Docusign more than once, once you start doing it, your folders, one transaction folder might have 6 folders of signed documents because you've gone back and forth and back and forth. But what they'll do is it'll just be a folder that they put in your file. It says Docusign signatures completed and the date. Okay? So it's in there for you automatically. Now, if I go into that folder, they'll look like PDFs and they'll say Docusign. That means they've already been signed. I can open any one of those and I've got my e-sign here again. Or maybe somebody just says, can you email that to me? I can email it to them. But I can go back in right here and click, this is my e-sign. I know it doesn't say e-sign, but that's your e-sign symbol. And I can send it back through Docusign if something needs to be tagged or, you know, so we missed something or anything that needs to be re-signed or was missed, that sort of thing. Okay? So they make it really easy for us. All right, so let's look at the agreement of sale because this can be a little tricky. And I want to look at this from both sides. On the buy side, let me run my little video here. Just kind of show you what a buyer would see. So they go in, again, they have to click off this little, I agree to the electronic signatures. They click continue, and then that little start flag is right there. So they click on the start flag, and it takes them right to the first initial. They click on that, and in this case, I'm just going to select draw to show you how easy it is. So I click on that, I draw the initials in. I'm functioning as my buyer now. You guys won't have to do this because your signature is already saved. And then they're just clicking. And watch how fast that goes. Are they reading that? No, they're not reading that, right? Now I will say, and I'm going to pause this here for a second, this is the spot, and this is why I like to show you the agreement. I'm going to say 7 times out of 10 that I do this with people, it slows down now at inspections. It used to shoot us down, you know, they'd fill out the one inspection thing, the home inspection, and then it would shoot them to the bottom of the page to do the other initial. It's gotten a little bit slower sometimes. I don't know why sometimes it speeds up, why sometimes it slows down. For my video, it slowed down, which is nice. The tricky thing with this section, and I'm going to paraphrase from the conversation I had with Dawn, our attorney. The easy thing to do here would be to have this conversation with your buyer about inspections and to go in and delete the tags for what you've said, okay, we're going to do the home inspection, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and just delete the waves on the inspections they don't want. So they're only looking at the elected on those inspections. Dawn does not want us to do that. We're basically, even if you've had the conversation with them beforehand, I said, what if it's in writing? Doesn't matter. Don't take the decision away from them here when they're docu-signing. We have to leave, or she would like us to leave, the elected and the waived. Now the problem with that is these are not, they're both not initials that are, or I should say any of them, you don't have to initial them. They have to be optional, right? So the waive and elected have to be optional so they have the choice. But the problem with that is they could skip it altogether and finish the document, and Docusign doesn't realize that they had to pick one or the other. They can also check both waive and elected off, and I know we've all had that happen on the same one. Sometimes they either miss it, and the next one, guarantee you, they check both of them off. And it's Docusign can't tell the difference. We've talked to them about this a million times. Their suggestion was for us to go in and we can, when you're setting this up, you can just eliminate the things they don't want. I talked to Dawn about it and she's not comfortable with us doing that, which I understand. So it's really just a little bit of education on your part, and explaining to them, and you may have to send it back through again, explaining to them that, you missed something here, or you're going to have to make sure you waive and elect on each one of these. Just remember, The inspections are page 6 and 7 of the agreement. So you can always resend pages 6 and 7 back through if they miss something or need to correct something. So let me go back to this. And I'm going to show you, I purposely missed one on here. And it doesn't do anything, it doesn't even tell me. So he's just clicking kind of back and forth, waiving and electing. I totally skip property and flood insurance. And it's not going to let me know. It's going to let me finish this document because the signatures have to be optional there. So these guys, would stop me if I missed a page, but on the inspections, it's not. So you just have to be careful. It'll let them finish the document because they're optional. So that's it. You could tag like the line number specifically. Yeah. Well, you still have to leave them both optional. Yeah, but they could still they could still screw it up. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you could still leave a note and just say, here's that tricky part or whatever. But yeah, that's basically it. And I know it's confusing, but it's confusing for your buyers too. So make sure you either pick up the phone or just have this conversation with them ahead of time that the inspections are a little wonky. If you miss something, I'm going to send it back through, but it can get a little wonky there. Now, when you have this, yes?
So if they check off those and they call you and they say, oh, I didn't need to check off this.
Right.
Uncheck, that's what's going to show up in history and that's right?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't, don't go do that. But no, you can actually just send, and I'll show you how to send back through just 1 or 2 pages. And just say to them, hey, you not screwed this up, but you messed this up on page 7, just, you have to check one of these or you have to uncheck one of these. Yeah. So when you have the seller, what happens? When you have the seller, you get a PDF usually, right, of the actual agreement of sale. So you have this PDF, you go to e-sign, and this is when you're tagging and dragging those suckers in. Or somebody had the question in the back, Patty, can you use a template? Yes, you could set up a Docusign template if you chose to do that. I don't know too many people that do them, but it is an option. And you just grab the thing, drag it, and drop it on all the places it needs to be signed. Okay? Initially, a lot of agents would say, like, well, if it's somebody in my office, can't they just add me to their Docusign? Yeah, if it's an inner office or an inner company, and you just want them to add you into Docusign, is that going to make your life easier? Heck yeah, it's going to make your life easier. It means you're giving, their email to the other person, but if they're in the same office, they could probably get it anyway somehow. So is it that big of a deal? I don't know. It's really up to you. But yes, if it's an intercompany, interoffice kind of deal, and the buyer's agent is offering to add you as the seller and and just send it all through Docusign on their account, I would always say yes to that. Make it easier on you. So when you have the seller, you just have to do that. Now, let's just say they missed something on page 6 or 7. Page 6 and 7 are your inspections. I can go back here, and when I check off when I'm e-signing, there's always this little drop down, and you'll see it like the lower corner here when you mouse over. And in this case, on the agreement, it pops up all these page numbers. And if I click off page 6, it becomes blue, and you'll see a little check mark. And then I can just send that one particular page back through Docusign to my buyer. Make sense? So that makes that a lot easier. All right, I have one question online. Let me see if I can grab that. Okay. So let's look at the transaction management piece of this. This is the newest part. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. We've only had this for about a month, and I've been playing around with it. I'm not sure exactly how much we're going to try and template some of this stuff out for you. I don't know if you'll use it or not, but let me just show you what it can do and what potentially we could do as a company with it. Right now, you can certainly do this on your own. So zipForm basically wants to help you manage your tasks and your dates. And if I go into, so we've looked at documents, we've looked at parties, we've looked at property. Now on checklist, if we look at this little guy here, these are our options. So we're on the checklist tab. We can view our list, which we have to create first. There's a new task, new checklist, new category. Send means I'm either sending my calendar, like this page of my calendar, or a list to my buyer or seller. And then urgent tasks would be anything that, you know, I want to go in and mark urgent, or anything I've added a due date to. Somebody was talking about due dates. And that's when you'll see those due dates come into play. So there is a checklist format built in that you can use on each transaction. It's very similar to the checklist that we already have loaded in here, except it's actually going to prompt you for the document. It'll prompt you with due dates and things like that. So it's pretty simple to do. You click on New Task, and this is what it looks like. Task name, in this case, I called it Second Deposit. My executed, or my checklist, I called Executed Buyers. Sounds awful now that I think about it. But basically, you know, anybody that has a signed agreement. Is it required? Yes. Has it been completed yet? No. And then I picked category. My categories were pretty simple. I made a buyer's category and a seller's category. Woo, I know, crazy. Now the due date is the fun part. So under due date, you know, for like a mortgage commitment, I can pick a fixed date, right? I can go in and say, this is due on April 29th. For the second deposit, I don't really know, right? Because it depends on when my offer gets accepted. So I can do 5 days, and there's a this little drop down here is before or after, and then I can choose, in this case, offer acceptance date. So this is what's called a relative date, and it's great for inspections and deposits and anything that's based off of, you know, my acceptance date or my execution date. You can attach documents here, anything that you want to do, and then you just save it, and that's pretty much as tricky as it gets. You can, like I said, share a calendar or a list like this with your person, and allow them to actually go in and, you know, see all the different things. What I would personally like to see here is us to be able to collaborate with this, because right now you can see the checklist live, but I think it would be cool if they could actually participate in it live, rather than having you have to send it to them. So hopefully that'll be something that they add into this in the future. Like I said, we've only had it about a month, so we're just kind of starting to play around with it now. So I see a lot of potential in it. I just don't quite know where it's going to go. And somebody asked me about due dates on forms, so let me show you that real quick, and then Carol will take your question. So see where we have due dates here in our transaction now. So we've got like consumer notice. I can go in and I can set a due date. This is all related to my transaction management. It's a shortcut basically for a task. So I can go in, and if I'm not, what consumer notice is, that's a bad one to look at, but let me look at, so let's go to our new form, our cheese form, our brie. Let's just say I can, you know, I need to set my due date for that. It's going to be a relative date, and I need it 10 days because I haven't changed my agreement, so I need it 10 days. Scroll down a little bit. Can't see it. Sorry, I'm trying to get this to a spot where you guys can actually see what I'm typing in here. Set date, relative, 10 days after. And somewhere in there is my actual, I'm just going to say date of contract, but somewhere in there is offer acceptance date. So obviously that's what I would want here. I save it, and then I've got my due date in there. And that automatically will pop then onto my calendar. So if I go over to checklist, you can see now it's already on here, and I'm able to look at that. If I want to look at the calendar, it should be on my calendar as well. That's where, so initially, if you remember, one of the first things I showed you under profile is there's this new section called notifications, and that's where you can go in and, you know, what do you want to be notified on when tasks are due, that sort of thing. zipForm would love to email you and notify you and all that stuff. It just depends on what you want. So, okay, so hopefully that answers the question that we had online. Carol, what was your question? Oh, okay, perfect. So anything else other questions that you guys have? I know I went over an hour. Any other questions I can answer? Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to talk louder. Can't. Uh-huh. Okay, so you weren't here in the beginning. So one of the first things you have to do with this is you have to connect Docusign and zipForm. So your board, have you ever used Docusign before? Okay, so like maybe 2.5 years ago, our board sent us out these emails with a Docusign activation. You have to actually get that Docusign activation email. You can call BCAR. They'll actually send it out to you. And you just click on the activation link, set up your account, and then I'll show where it is here. If you look at like just under your last name and you go to profile, under settings, you need to go in and check off Docusign and then put your login and password that you set up. That'll connect the two. Yeah, you have to do that or none of this is going to work. But definitely need to do that. Yeah, Eric.
On the transaction management, what's the difference between the relative date and the fixed date?
So the difference between the relative date and the, excuse me, and the fixed date would be like my mortgage commitment is due April 29th. Relative date would be my inspection are due 10 days, my BRI form is due 10 days after my offer acceptance date or whatever you made it. Yeah, so it's like a number or an exact date. Yeah. Relative to meaning relative to a particular date. Yeah.
And I guess if you wanted to remind yourself like a couple days before something is due, so you make sure you talk to the client before it's actually on the due date.
Oh yeah, you can set up your own due dates. Nobody monitors those. In fact, I would make them all a day or two early personally just because I'm super anal with stuff like that. So yeah, you're setting those due dates, and even if it's a variable, you don't have to say relative due date. You can just make them all fixed dates and go by your own calendar and say, this is when I want to remind myself. And you're bringing up a good reason why I'm not sure I'm going to do these checklists company-wide because I don't know if it'll be helpful because I think some people would want it that way. Other people might want it the exact day that it's due. So I'm kind of not really sure how I'm going to handle that. But, any other questions? All right, let me see what questions we have here. Optional initial location. Steve, I have no idea what you're talking about, so you're going to have to give me a little more info there. I'm reading your comments, but I just don't know what you're trying to say to me. So either catch me offline or be a little more descriptive. For everybody in the room, if you don't have anything else, that's all I have. Thank you very much for joining me. And this was recorded, so if you need it, I'll post it, and you can go back to it. All right, thanks, guys. All right, let's see. Thank you. Yeah, guys, if you don't have any more, I'll hang out for a little bit if you have questions, but if you don't, feel free to jump off. Yeah, Steve, you can ask me now or call me or whatever is easier. Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, we are done. Yes, Sharon, I will send the cheat sheet to everybody that was logged in online. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Okay.